Ah, Arsène Lupin, the gentleman thief, master of disguise, a true legend of chivalry and wit. But what happens when that legend gets twisted into an absolute nightmare? Well, today we're diving into one of Lupin's darkest, most personal battles ever, a story of revenge that stretches across decades and weaponizes the one thing he holds most dear.
So this was the question on everyone's mind all across France. A series of brutal, violent crimes were being committed, and they all had the signature style of Arsène Lupin. But this wasn't the hero of the people. This was a vicious, cruel criminal. The public was horrified, and you can bet Lupin himself was furious. So who was behind this? I mean, who could possibly be brilliant enough to mimic Lupin's methods, yet cruel enough to use them for pure bloodshed? And that's really where our story kicks off, with a legend's reputation being systematically torn to shreds. And the difference is just night and day. The Lupin everyone knew and loved was all about his code of honor. He was a protector, not a predator. These new crimes, though, they were ruthless. They were designed not just to steal, but to terrorize and to permanently stain his name with blood. And then, the bombshell drops. The man behind the mask, a brilliant young criminal named Raoul de Limésy, proudly announces to the world that he is Lupin's son. Now, for Lupin, this wasn't just some imitator. This was a devastating personal attack. But he realized pretty quickly this young man wasn't the true mastermind. No, he was just a puppet.
So if he was the puppet, who was pulling the strings? Well, it was a ghost from Lupin's past, and she was back for a final, terrible reckoning. Let me introduce you to Joséphine Balsamo, the Countess of Cagliostro. She was Lupin's first great enemy, an ageless, absolutely ruthless mastermind who he betrayed way back in his youth. And for decades, she just plotted her revenge, and now she was back to execute it with horrifying precision. You could say she was his perfect nemesis, kind of like Lupin's dark mirror. I mean, she had all of his genius, his charisma, his flair for the dramatic, but none of his morality. Where Lupin protects, she dominates. Where he has a code of honor, she has only cruelty. But here's the thing, the Countess's plan? It was so much more than just a simple frame job. It was a masterpiece of psychological torture, aimed right at Lupin's heart.
Her plan was just pure evil, really. First, she hunts down Lupin's secret son, a child he never even knew existed. For years, she acts as his mentor, poisoning his mind, twisting Lupin's own philosophy into a justification for violence. She molded this boy into the perfect weapon to destroy his father's legacy, all leading up to one single fatal confrontation.
And this is where it gets truly heartbreaking. This son wasn't just any child. He was the son of Clarice Statigs, the one true love of Lupin's life, a woman who was murdered by the Countess herself years ago. So this boy, he was the last living piece of Lupin's greatest love, now turned into an instrument by his greatest enemy.
So you have the Countess, right? Her whole thing is theatrics, fear, staging these crimes to look like supernatural miracles, designed to baffle the police and just break her victims. But she was up against Lupin's cold, hard logic.
Okay, so picture this, a classic locked room mystery. A man is found dead. The door's bolted, but from the inside, there's no way in, no way out. To the police, it looks impossible, maybe even supernatural, a perfect crime, orchestrated by Cagliostro.
But to Lupin, there's no such thing as miracles, only mechanics. He demonstrates the solution, a simple silk loop, fed through the keyhole. It hooks around the bolt, which is then yanked shut from the outside. The loop is pulled back out, leaving no trace. It's elegant, simple, and pure logic.
So, the Countess doesn't give up. She tries a different angle, this time psychological warfare. She starts terrorizing a victim with ghostly apparitions, disembodied voices echoing in the walls, phantom lights dancing in the dark. It's pure theater, designed to create absolute panic.
And just like that, Lupin calmly tears the whole illusion apart. He finds the source of the voices, speaking tubes hidden in the chimney. Those ghostly lights, a clever system of mirrors and shutters. And that glowing, drifting hand, just simple phosphorescent paint. Reason just dissolves the supernatural.
So in the end, Lupin does it. He outsmarts the Countess. He breaks her psychological hold over his son and exposes her entire scheme, defeating his greatest enemy once and for all. But this was no simple happy ending, not by a long shot.
Because you gotta understand, this was never just about a rivalry. This quote really captures it perfectly. In this story, he was at his most human, his most vulnerable. He wasn't fighting for jewels or for glory. He was a father, desperately fighting to save the last piece of the woman he loved from a life of pure evil.
The price of this victory was just immense. I mean, yeah, he cleared his name, he defeated the Countess, and he saved his son's soul. But his relationship with that son? Shattered. He was forced to relive the murder of his first love, and any peace he had managed to find was gone forever.
And that leaves us with a really tough question, doesn't it? It's a somber, reflective ending to one of the greatest adventures in the entire Lupin saga. He's standing there, victorious, but he's utterly alone, leaving all of us to wonder about the true nature of winning a war that has cost you almost everything.